Hi, today I wanted to talk about how I manage my typically combination skin. It has been commented and noted in certain videos I might look on the shiny side of dewy, and I suppose that's a personal choice. I prefer my skin to look real, not to be masked down. There'll be times whenever, because I'm naturally prone to flushing, my skin will look a little pinker than the rest of my skin, but rather than try to correct my face to the colour of my neck and chest, I prefer to let its natural tones show through. However, I do have a strategy for managing shine. I don't like looking shiny in my T-zone in particular. I don't mind natural sheen on the cheeks and the kind of curved surfaces of the outer parts of the face, but this part I prefer to be shine-free. So typically my base is Armani Luminous Silk, which isn't too sheeny, but definitely looks real and isn't matte. And I will have a little bit more coverage again in the T-zone, where I naturally have more redness in my complexion, and there'll be less coverage on the outer portion where less coverage is needed. So during the day, what that means is I will tote around a number of things depending on what the day has in store. I will always have blotting papers on me, and I would say I probably start blotting maybe 4 hours into my day, and my current favourites are these ones from DHC. I've tried loads of different brands, but these ones just seem the best value for money. They're designed the best, so you take one out and you only get one, as opposed to other brands where you take one out and you get 6, which is a bit annoying, and you try and shove them back in, then they get all over your purse and then they get grubby. They look pretty, they're kind of old-fashioned, kind of pharmacy vibes from maybe the 50s or something, and they're really reasonably priced. I buy these at John Bell & Croydon in London, but I'm sure they're readily available to buy online. So I always have these, and I always blot first, and some days I may just blot. That's all I do to keep shine at bay in terms of my makeup. The next thing, I suppose, in terms of like managing a naturally oily T-zone will be in terms of what I put underneath my base. Now, for me, if I'm trying to make my makeup last as long as possible, I'll wear a tinted, somewhat mattifying sunscreen. And for me, that's the Neostrata Sheer Physical Protection SPF 50. Now, it's a really silky finish. I wouldn't say it's matte, but certainly when I wear this under makeup looks a lot fresher at the end of the day, and there'll be less makeup that will have come off, because this will have kind of acted as a shield to prevent the oil from coming through and interfering with my foundation. For someone with a more olive-toned complexion, the Gianmarini Physical Protectant SPF 30 is also an excellent choice, and I would say is even more matte than the Neostrata one. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis. Now, if I'm doing something like what I'm doing today, if I'm filming, I will use some powder in my T-zone. I always have an argument when I'm being filmed for somebody else's job about how much matteness my skin has, because I like my skin to look shiny. I work hard to keep my complexion good with retinoids and sunscreen, and I just don't want to look like I've got a heavy coating on my skin. So what I will tend to agree to is a bit of powder in the T-zone, and to that end I'll use a very precise brush to be very localized about which surfaces it's going on to. So obviously the nose, fine, don't mind being powdered there. Upper lip, no one looks good being shiny there, that's fine too. And then this little sort of triangle on the side of the nose, and then a little bit in the center of the forehead where the light tends to pop, and then maybe a touch on the chin. And that's the only part of my face that I will permit powder, if you will. Now, if I'm filming, the one that I tend to use is the Mercier Secret Brightening Powder. I like the finish of it. It's super fine. It's actually designed to be used to set under eye makeup, so concealer under the eye. something I'm not crazy about because I find I then just end up with creasing. But it looks great on camera, really not like you've been powdered at all. So that's something I will use for filming work, but also for special occasions. So something black tie, for instance. For other events, like just going about my day-to-day, but perhaps I'm going out in the evening, the thing I'll tote around with me is my Armani Luminous Silk Compact. I love Armani products in general, and I find that this powder is excellent. I find that of all the powders, it's the least clog promoting, although I do believe that most powder is inherently quite troublesome if you're acne prone, and I really do advise staying away from this trouble zone of the face if you're blemish prone and you have comedones, those little bumps under the skin that are a common feature of adult female acne. But if I'm going to carry a powder compact around, it's this one. And again, I will use a small brush to apply it in a very strategic fashion after blotting, always after blotting, something worse than putting powder on to freshly oily skin. And I won't tend to powder maybe more than once in the course of a day. I keep the number of powder applications down because otherwise I just find it builds up on the surface and you end up with that sort of cakey, you know, appearance of product that I just think looks a bit, ugh. So that's what I do to manage my combination skin. So something to prevent oil coming through, blotting papers to remove excess oil as much as possible, and then 2 different powder-based products that I allow myself in certain instances. That's my approach. Please share yours in the comments box below. Bye for now.